It was hardly a surprise, but no less dramatic. After 2 years of uneasy power sharing in Sudan between civilians and the military, soldiers detained Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and seized control of the government. In an address on national television, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan declared a state of emergency on Monday. Residents set up barricades in the streets of the capital Khartoum after the military deployed. Many reject military rule.
We reject the statement entirely. We want a civilian government, the dissolution of the military council. We will not negotiate with the army anymore. Our people are perseverant and patient, and they insist that the government return to civilian rule.
Sudan had been ruled since August 2019 by a joint civilian military council after the overthrow of autocrat Omar al-Bashir. But the role of the civilians receded before the coup. Before formally grabbing power, General Burhan was the de facto head of state. But he was also a senior general during Bashir's 3-decade rule. The World Bank froze aid to Sudan, and the US paused $700 million in financial help. The African Union formally suspended the country. But the military rulers are digging in their heels. Security forces fired tear gas, broke up street barricades, and made sweeping arrests. At least 7 civilians have been killed since Monday, 4 of them by live bullets. The return of looted African art from Europe is gaining momentum. France is preparing to send back 26 looted works of art to Benin. British universities formally handed back artworks to African governments. On Wednesday, French President Emmanuel Macron visited the exhibit from the Kingdom of Dahomey, which is present-day Benin. These royal treasures from erstwhile capital city Abomey have been kept at the Quai Branly Museum, dedicated to African art in Paris.
As you can see, this restitution is more than just restitution. It's a whole cooperation program that should allow us to strengthen our ties, to create new opportunities for discussions, meetings, and projects. And that is perfectly consistent with what we wish to do more broadly.
Among the works are totem statues as well as the throne of King Behanzin, Dahomey's last independent rule. They were looted when colonial troops ransacked the palace in 1892. Macron will formally transfer the works to Benin's President Patrice Talon on November 9th. Also on Wednesday, Cambridge University returned to Nigeria a bronze statue looted a century ago. It is the first British institution to return an object taken from the continent during the colonial rule. Just a day after, Scotland's University of Aberdeen held a similar ceremony. The cockerel was given to the college in 1905 by a student's father. It is one of hundreds of sacred sculptures and carvings known as the Benin bronzes, which were looted from the former Kingdom of Benin in southern Nigeria.
We are very happy to see that this artifact, which has been away from Nigeria for decades, is in good shape, in excellent shape, and by the time we take this object back to Nigeria, people in Nigeria will be extremely excited.
Anti-racism movements in 2020 and the subsequent questioning of colonial legacy gave new drive to the campaign for the return of looted artworks to Africa. Since then, several other Western institutions have said they plan to hand looted African treasures back too. According to experts, as much as 90% of Africa's heritage is currently outside the continent. It may be our last chance to curb climate change, which threatens our planet's survival. Fresh UN climate talks open in Scotland on Sunday. Around 200 countries will discuss limiting carbon dioxide emissions. The goal is to prevent the Earth from heating up more than 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. Meanwhile, Africa says rich countries are falling short of promises to pay $100 billion each year to poorer nations. The targets need to be much more ambitious, according to the African bloc's chief negotiator.
Today, this promise has become obsolete. It is no longer relevant. And yet, developed countries are still unable to mobilize the funds. Our view now is that we need to go much further. It is not the maximum goal under the Paris Agreement because the agreement says $100 billion is a minimum.
A new UN tally says the world is heading for catastrophic warming of 2.7 degrees Celsius by 2100. July this year was the hottest month ever recorded. Sub-Saharan Africa is the most vulnerable to these changes, with severe weather occurrences like droughts or floodings and knock-on effects of rising sea levels and hunger. 6 years ago, at the landmark Paris climate talks, nearly every country in the world set targets for reducing their carbon emissions. But the sum total of their pledges fell short of what is needed. It remains to be seen if updated pledges will be enough.
A 3,600-kilometre-long rock barrier is supposed to protect Senegal's historical city of Saint-Louis from the onslaught of the Atlantic Ocean. It stands at the mouth of the Senegal River, formerly the capital of French West Africa. It is considered one of the African cities most endangered by rising seas. Senegalese authorities began building this dike in 2019. It is almost completed. Maguette Sene is a local fisherman.
Everyone is happy with the start of this project. Even those who do not live on the Langue de Barbarie approve of it. For several years, the residents of the Langue de Barbarie have been up against this one threat, the advancing sea. But since this project began, we have become optimistic.
The Langue de Barbarie is a narrow sandy strip that stretches about 25 kilometres long and separates the Senegal River from the sea. Waves bombard the area, especially between August and October during the rainy season. In 2018, more than 3,200 people lost their homes. 1,500 people have been relocated to this camp, 12 kilometres inland. The residents of this camp rely on fishing to survive. Their relocation so far from the sea has made life very hard. Eventually, the government plans to build 600 houses on the campsite, but moving coastal populations is a thorny issue. Experts say the wall is insufficient to keep the advancing sea away. They accuse political leaders of pushing away the issue instead of finding long-term solutions. The dam and the relocation programme will cost around $85 million and is partly funded by the World Bank.
In terms of cost, it was the affordable option, it was faster, and it cost a little less compared to the other proposals. It's normal that other proposals that cost 3 or 4 times as much will take longer.
If the Fisherman's Quarter disappears, St. Louis' historic centre will be at risk. But oil was recently discovered offshore. It will bring in more revenue to the state, and with it, hope to preserve the future of the UNESCO heritage site.